Imagine this. What if a sitting senator's entire career was put on the line not because of politics, but because nobody knew who their parents were? Well, today we're diving into a landmark case that did exactly that. It's a story that questioned the very definition of citizenship and ended up changing the rights of thousands. And this all boils down to one huge, high-stakes question that the Philippine Supreme Court had to answer. It really cuts to the heart of identity and law. Can a foundling, a person with no known parents, actually hold one of the highest offices in the entire country? Now, you have to understand, this wasn't some theoretical debate in a law school classroom. Nope, this was a real, full-on legal assault aimed at kicking a very well-known public figure, Senator Grace Poe, out of office. So the whole thing got started back in 2015 when a petitioner, a man named Rizalito Y. David, filed a case. His argument was pretty simple, but wow, was it powerful. He said the Constitution demands that senators be natural-born citizens, and since Grace Poe was a foundling and couldn't prove who her biological parents were, she couldn't possibly meet that standard. The legal tool he used for this is called a petition for quo warranto. It sounds super fancy, but all it really means is, by what authority are you here? It's a legal challenge that forces someone in office to prove, beyond a doubt, that they have the right to hold that position. It's a direct shot at their legitimacy. To really get the weight of this whole thing, we've got to look at Senator Poe's pretty incredible life story. I mean, every single part of it, from her birth to her political career, became a piece of evidence in this massive case. Okay, so her story starts back in 1968 when she was found as a newborn baby outside a church. She was later adopted by two of the most famous actors in the country. Then, as an adult, she actually became a U.S. citizen, but later she reacquired her Philippine citizenship. Every one of these steps would be put under a microscope by the court. So, you're probably wondering, how did all these life events turn into such a massive legal battle? Well, it all came down to two totally different ways of reading the Philippine Constitution. On one side, you had the challenge. It was based on this legal idea called jus sanguinis, which basically means right of blood. Your citizenship comes from your parents. So the argument was, since Poe can't prove she has a Filipino bloodline, she can't be a natural-born citizen. Simple as that. But her defense said, whoa, hold on a second. They argued you have to look at the bigger picture. A super strict reading would be totally unfair, basically creating a whole class of people who are punished for something they had no control over. That flies in the face of human rights. With the lower courts divided and the public watching closely, the entire case got kicked up to the Supreme Court. The whole nation was basically holding its breath, waiting for the final word on this completely unprecedented question. And when the decision finally came, wow. The court did not mince words. The ruling opened with this incredibly powerful sentence, pretty much telling everyone which way they were leaning from the get-go. It was a complete rejection of any interpretation that would sideline a whole group of people just because of how they were born. So, how did they reach that conclusion? Well, their reasoning was built on four big pillars. First, constitutional harmony. They said you have to read the Constitution as a whole, so citizenship rules have to line up with things like protecting children. Second, they relied on substantial evidence, looking at circumstantial facts, like where she was found, instead of demanding proof that was impossible to get. Third, and this is cool, they looked at statistical probability. And finally, they considered international law, specifically treaties that protect kids from being left without a country. And get this, the statistical argument was a real game changer. The government's lawyers showed that back in 1968, the year Grace Poe was found, there was a 99.8% probability that any baby born in the Philippines had at least one Filipino parent. That's not just an emotional plea. That's a hard, logical number that's really tough to argue with. So, as you can probably tell, this decision was about way more than just one senator's job. It fundamentally changed the legal status of foundlings all across the Philippines. What the court did was establish a groundbreaking new precedent. Basically, from that day on, foundlings are presumed to be natural-born citizens. The default position is that they are citizens. The burden of proof got completely flipped. Now, it's up to anyone who wants to challenge that status to prove otherwise. And this is why it really, truly matters. The ruling slammed the doors shut on the idea of creating a second-class tier of citizens. It sent a loud and clear message. Your rights and your ability to serve your country can't be taken away just because you were abandoned as a baby. In the end, this whole incredible case leaves us with a pretty deep question to think about.
It really makes you consider how a nation's laws are like a mirror, reflecting its deepest values, especially when it comes to how it treats its most vulnerable people.